Anyway, let's start a session. We have around an hour or so to go through a few very interesting presentations and leaving some room for the discussion and Q&A also after that. And see, the session is how to wow and winning the consumer. And since we are at the Images Retail Forum, and we are looking at it from the perspective of not only looking at the consumer, but looking at the shopper as well. And the idea is not only about winning the consumer to get them to come to the store or come and experience the brand, but also to ensure that they go back pleased and satisfied and delighted so that they're always looking forward to coming back. And in one of the presentations, one of the speakers will be talking about that how the post-purchase experience and how the post-purchase handling of the consumer is very, very important to ensure that the consumers are really, really wowed in a manner that they continue to come back and become loyal customers. On the panel, I have with me very distinguished, very experienced professionals from across industries. And I'll give a very brief introduction to each one of them. And the way we are organizing it is that each one of them will be making a presentation for 5 to 7 minutes. And post that, we will have a discussion within the panel. And obviously, I'll invite all of you to participate in that too. So our first panelist is Alistair Gordon, who is the founder and group managing director of Value Access, which is a gift card and loyalty program provider across 5 countries, and they have large number of customers. And while I was sitting with him in the speaker lounge, he met almost everybody who was either his customer or who is going soon to be going his customer. So he has a lot of experience of working with Indian companies on the customer loyalty programs, and he will share his insights with us. Then we have Devinder Chawla from Food Bazaar, who right now is president of Food Bazaar, and obviously has been in the retail for last 7 years, earlier with Reliance and now with Food Bazaar. So experience of retail, which is the recent one, and from a consumer insights point of view, his experience with Unilever and Asian Paints before that, definitely something I'm looking forward to listen to his viewpoints on the subject. Then we have, just bear with me, we're flicking through this and I must get glasses soon. We have Sandeep Kulali from Titan, and he's, correct me Sandeep if I'm wrong, he's a lifer with Titan last 20 years and has worked across divisions and across this thing. He'll be sharing with us their experience on customer service in the Tanishq store, and I'm sure many of us, at least I have, and many of you would have experienced that how wonderful the whole experience of going to a Tanishq store for shopping is. And then we have Sandeep Kataria, who is General Manager for Pizza Hut and CMO, Chief Marketing Officer for the Yum Group, which had Pizza Hut, KFC, Taco Bell, all those brands under them. And he was with Unilever for around 16 years. So again, a lot of consumer products business experience, as well as now the retail experience, managing consumers and delighting them at their stores. And then we have Karan Gopalakrishnan, who is Director Retail at Nokia, and we all have, and he would have loved all of us to still be using Nokia. I'm sure many of us are using, and that's I think one of his primary objectives, to get many more of us to once again start using Nokia. I hope I'm not touching at the wrong nerve. And before that, he has been with Adidas for many, many years in India when they were starting up in India, and after that in Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore for many, many years. And he has come back to India around 3 years ago and has been part of this whole organized retail boom or organized retail revolution which we are seeing in India. I have Karthik here from Lakme Livers. He's the CEO for Lakme Liver, and before that he was with McKinsey, where he was the author of The Great Indian Bazaar, Organized Retail Comes of Age in India report. Quite an insightful report. I have seen some experts of that myself, and I'm sure many of you would have also had a chance to look at it. So Karthik will be talking about his experience in the Indian retail business and delighting consumer as well. So now I'll first, before everybody else, I'll ask Devinder Chawla to come and make his presentation, and after that, subsequently, each one of the speakers will make the presentation. So welcome to the session, and I hope you will enjoy it and also participate in the discussion at the end. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Devendra Chavla, introduced by Harminder. So, the topic we were given is customer service to wow consumer. And before we get into the discussions and the presentations, I just thought we'll set the background to how we at Future Group and Food Bazaar I'm going to speak more from the Food Bazaar's point of view, which is food retailing, but later when we have a discussion, we can even speak of other categories. That what is the background which we see customer service as? We actually, all supermarkets are self-service stores, and the challenge actually is the reverse. I mean, we can actually turn the whole discussion upside down, which is how not to over-service the customer. I think we've long lived in the country with a lot of buying where there's a lot of intrusion, a lot of information coming in, and then we have our supermarkets where the whole idea is to not obstruct or be intrusive to the consumer. So the way we look at it is we need to be an ally to the consumer, but we need to be in the background. We need to create the environment that the consumer gets all the information, is empowered, but then is not intruded into. And that's something which we very strongly feel is the biggest customer service one can do. So we believe that slowly, consumers feel very empowered when they're in a modern retail, a supermarket, or a hypermarket store. As I said, we are primarily self-service format. The idea is to help the consumer understand the promotion, the prices, but not intrude, let them make their choices. See, as incomes grow and more awareness and aspirations grow, there's a lot of experimentation happening with consumers. And where does it all happen? It happens in a supermarket. But then you can't force the customer to buy what they already know. As a retailer, it's our job that customers can try anything they want, whatever it is new. And even whether they know the brands or they don't know the brands or categories, introducing new categories, we have to make sure that we create the platform and give the freedom. Let the customer feel herself in the store. I believe that itself is one of the biggest customer services one can do. Today, if you notice, at least in urban India, slowly, anonymity is very important. You don't want to be pestered or spoken to all the time when you're shopping. If you need help, of course, people are there. But in itself, again, the job is to make sure that the customers feel themselves and don't feel intruded. So I think anonymity is a very big thing. And as supermarkets grow, consumers are going to only exert their freedom. They don't want to be assessed on what they're buying or how much are they paying. They just want to be served. And one of the strong pillars we believe of serving customers is to fulfill this need. Customers don't always want that somebody is watching what they're buying, how much they're paying. Even though retailers later have data, which they convert into loyalty program. And we have all the loyalty programs, and we have all kind of servicing customers, or if you've bought an air conditioner, somebody will go to the house. If it's gone wrong, they'll go and... All that is also customer service. But here, what I'm talking fundamentally is the shopping environment and what we can do. So what we're saying is the biggest customer service we see is to empower the consumer through the whole process. In fact, we just got a view of a customer which says the supermarket is not only enabling better choice, but also at every step boosting confidence to experiment and make our own choice. Boost to self-confidence and ally to aspiration fulfillment. I've already covered this. Experiment and entertainment is therefore the preferred rather than monotonous counter service. You don't want to talk to somebody all the time. If you need help, we have people in the stores. But again, the whole idea is to let them be themselves. Create the right environment. And another lens which we use to see the customer is the very Indian thing which we call of seva. We believe that by doing seva the right way, we can win consumers and they can keep coming back to us. So I'll just take you through what are the 4 pillars of seva. It is absolutely serving them unconditionally when it comes to our store, selfless, passion, humbling. We are totally agnostic. It doesn't matter which community you are, rich, poor. We welcome all consumers and everybody is equal for us. And then there's an emotion of seva. And I'll just come to it, how we believe we are doing the seva bhav. See, as times are changing and more and more women are working, I think they need help. What we do call convenience. I believe if we start, there are many stores of Food Bazaar where if you buy vegetable or fruits, the staff, there's a counter where we can cut it for free. We'll pack it for free, we'll cut it for free. I think that's what we call seva. There's a lot of stores where we convert atta into roti. In fact, there's some stores in Bangalore where you can even actually make it into a roti if you want. Most of these services are available for free. This is just an example of one of the stores. In our stores, most of the stores, if you go to a food bazaar, you'll also find people buy grains, all kind of grains, wheat. And now, with more education coming in, people want multi-grain attas. People want to buy nachni, jowar, bajra, atta, mix it as per the ratios they want. So we encourage that. If they buy at our store, then we do the chakki part absolutely free at our stores. We believe this is a part of seva which we can do. We also believe that people are living or going from one city to another. So we could have an example of a Malayali living in Amritsar, and we could have a Maharashtrian living in Siliguri. And they may not find their native food. And, fulfilling that need, talking to them, finding what they need, and even giving that. It's a lot of people might see this as assortment or fulfilling a gap in a retailer's assortment. But I think we do see it as a seva, because the kind of assortment we've put, and I'll just come to an example. We've also engaged with self-help groups. A lot of women we've engaged groups which cook traditional Maharashtrian food. I'm just giving you an example of Maharashtra since we are in Mumbai. And the sales of this category itself, this brand which I'm speaking, is very high. It's a couple of crores, in fact, tens of crores. And people love it and they come back all the time, because if they want good hygienic, such brands, native food, the fact is it's not easily available. We also believe that foods for fasting or even festivals, if anyone is a Bengali here, any Bengali here in the crowd? Is there anyone? Okay. Or in North India, if you see, there is Karwa Chauth. We also believe in celebrating all these festivals with the community. You could be away from home, but at those times, at those special times, we'll make sure everything which is required to celebrate a local festival or a community festival, we'll have the products. We believe, irrespective of how much sales we do, this is also customer service or customer seva. Also, customer service can't be done alone at the front end. So we have a program called Samandhi program for our vendors. And this is just not a vendor management tool or a vendor development program. This is actually when we have a specific community to be catered to. And we have stores all across the country. We sit with our vendors, and after getting feedback from consumers, work out what do we really need to do to fulfill those gaps. And this goes really beyond just a traditional or a basic vendor management where you say, okay, I'm going to buy this and what is the promotion? Not at all. We have a customer advisory board as well, where a lot of consumers monthly give us a lot of formal feedback on all the hygiene factors. How are our promotions? How much time does it take to bill at the store? What is the billing efficiency? How does the store layout? Are they able to find the products? But all this we still believe is hygiene, and every retailer has to get it right. So that's basically, in the 5 minutes, I thought I'll present what is Future Group's view on customer service. As we debate, then we can chat. Thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Great to be back at IRF, and it's always a pleasure to be here in the premium retailing environment that India has. The majors have done a great job in getting all of us together in a place like this for 2 days and learn from each other's experiences. Can I have the Titan presentation, please? Titan Industries, many of you are familiar with this, has been the forefront of lifestyle retailing, specialty retailing for the last 25 years, and has covered 3 categories of 3 industries: watches, jewelry, and eyewear. And our entire business model is around the consumer, and therefore our entire investments, our entire approach to retail models have been around customers. And that's one of the reasons why, as a company, we strongly believe in this customer relations bit, just not beyond just talking about it, but also executing them in the stores. So I'll just cover quickly what the Tanishq experience is. It's similar across the other businesses. Background: Tanishq jewelry buying behavior is very different other categories. One thing you've noticed, jewelry buying is very, very old tradition. And the way it's been bought and sold has been very traditional, very lack of transparency is rampant in this industry. The Anuttara program, the bedrock of our relationship program with consumers, and how we go beyond a loyalty program per se, which is a point business, how we take it forward, and how is it different, and how we structure it, and how do we use Anuttara to deliver this wow experience to consumers so that they come back to the stores because of the loyalty and because of the attachment that they have for the store. And some key themes on this engagement: the activity that we do within the store and outside, and what is the business impact of all this. Although the effort in doing these programs are not for business, but resultants typically come with better results from the consumers. Tanishq, as you all know, is the largest jeweler in terms of network and one of the few modern retailers, if I may use the word, not organized and unorganized, as a modern retailers. Only corporate jeweler, 137 stores in 84 towns. A strong connect with Tatas because of trust. We brought purity into the business. And obviously is an aspirational brand for most consumers, the largest awarded jewelry brand. And we've done a lot of work with creating a category excitement in the Kundan Polki collection through Paheli and Jodha Akbar. And of course, a professional sales environment. And of course, the effort in this category is that there's a long relationship with the consumers and the seller, which is integral to this category. The main consumer buying behavior is very typical of jewelry industry, is bought during wedding seasons and for traditional occasions. Therefore, the designs are typically very traditional. You won't find any cutting-edge designs in jewelry industry. And the second part, interestingly, is that youngsters are not in tune with jewelry as a category. It's still considered very traditional, very old school. The value of safety, security, are not very particular with young customers today. That's a challenge for the category. And it's a high-value category. Customers are very aware of material, especially, and because the jewelers have taught them that way, that there is more material value in it than the design aspiration and design value. Trust is obviously the key driver for this business. And of course, this business carries the second largest cash transaction in this country, which we're trying to fight. And loyalty is extremely high in this business, and jewelry has been bought from family jewelers largely, and customers know each other very well. Therefore, the jewelers believe that relationship is more important than the transparency and the trust that customers get. This Anuttara program is what we have started in 2007. We have 2 million consumers over the last 5 years, and they contribute to 55% of our business. And the mission, like we said, is not to only make it one more card in the customer's wallet, but can we go beyond it and create powerful platforms to engaging with them on personal occasions and personal times when they need it the most. It's largely a one-to-one relationship with the customers on a very personal occasion, like I mentioned, and something always give them gifts or whatever kind of services which they appreciate, which they personally like. I'll share some examples with you. For example, the Bengali customers, we gave them a specially created DVD, crafted by us only for the consumers, for Rabindranath Tagore. And similarly, on his birthday, we invite them to the store and cut birthday cakes and for the anniversary in the store physically. And constantly make us customer excited about being associated with Tanishq at important occasions in their lifetime. This is just a structure of our loyalty program. It's more technical, so I won't spend time on this, but it's how we keep the criteria of loyalty membership, temporary, permanent, there are royal, super royal, and how we differentiate them more from their value of the customers delivered to the brand of the years. And what do we do for creating this wow factor? First is creating the brand ambassador. Like I mentioned, this business needs lots of trust, and therefore Tanishq started being a trustworthy brand. But how do we make sure that they stay with us? We're the only brand which takes customers every year to the factory. And they get to see how jewelry is made in a factory, because no jeweler has a factory of his own which he can showcase. The entire transparency bit of sourcing of gold, the diamond that we use, how it's used, how it's made is showcased to them. And they actually physically touch products and see how and therefore that's the one part of it. And post-purchase gifting during Akshaya Tritiya and Dhanteras, which are very traditional occasions for jewelry buying. We have celebrated, like you mentioned, Devendra mentioned, how we touch a regional celebration, because this business is all about communities. And therefore, regional language publication, having community associations during Diwali, Christmas, Eid, we engage with customers on those occasions. Birthday anniversaries I mentioned to you, 50th birthday, 20th anniversaries, we have special occasions for customers who bring them to the store and celebrate with their families. We've released books that are people, get information of personal nature. That's the effort of our brand, that they know which book they like to read, which movie they want to see. And during occasions, we actually give them those free books, like Sachin's book, such as Sachin's fan, we give them Sachin's book. Somebody likes a movie of a particular actor, we give them tickets to those customers. Those kind of personal offers that we give for our customers. Similarly, for Valentine's Day. And personalized communication. We address each customer by name in any of our offers. Therefore, the guy gets that personal experience. And data correction and collection is an important integral part of the loyalty program. If you don't have the right information, you can't engage with them on a personal method. And obviously, the effort of this program is to reduce the churn, because retailing has a churn. It's an integral part of retailing business. There are customers who come and customers who go. But the effort should be to engage with them and make sure they stay with us. The factory visit, just to create some example of how the customers are bought to the factory at company cost. They fly them down up in Bangalore, and they go around the factory for a day or two. And we give them gifts when they leave the store, or personalized nature. So we have a factory visit where we engage with the customers, demonstrate, educate the customers on what Tanishq is, why it's so different. And they interact with senior management, people like us. We meet them and we talk to them about Tanishq differentiation. And these customers then invited the local customer meets in the locations, thereby they become the spokesperson for the brand in those markets. Just an example of some customer meets we had in the stores. In the stores, we have events around outside the store where we call all our loyal customers and engage with them, some entertainment, and they spend time with the brand and therefore learn more about the brand in that process. That's customer engagements. We give lovely thank you gifts, not for anything of the buying. They give them these personalized gifts created exclusively by the brand, not available in the market. So therefore, they get that personal feeling that this brand cares for them. Regional celebration, community celebration, and social causes. We have had wonderful occasions like Lohri, Easter celebration, Karwa Chauth. They mentioned that every community is spread in India, and therefore they need to be, felt like at home in those markets, in those 84 towns where Tanishq exists. And Mother's Day, Independence Day, Eid, Teachers' Day, for example, Doctors' Day. We have got doctors to the factory, we've got teachers to the factory, and the kind of engagement that they have with the brand is immense. Those values are uncomparable. The kind of feeling they go back with when they come back to the locations. Personal milestone, I mentioned clearly to you, we have celebration in the store. For the anniversary, birthdays. And like I said, many people love drama, theater, they love movies, so we give them tickets for concerts, movies. Book release of favorite authors, we give them as gifts, and customized CDs of musics, and is what we give those customers of their choice that they have mentioned to us. Some of the special moments celebrated in the stores. 9 lakh members are personally wished on their birthdays, anniversary every year, and about 16,000 of them are celebrated within the stores. They get personal, the family comes and they share the birthday, cut a cake, and with the family, take photographs, and we hand them over to the family. And there have been very strong bonding because of this. And like I said, this is what we call a cellular approach for gifting. We try and get as much information on their personal likes, personal likes and their tastes, and therefore we create those events. For example, the CD on music, Kishore Kumar Lover, we've created a special with Saregama to create a selection of Kishore Kumar songs, which is exclusive to Tanishq alone, which we give the consumers. So like that, we have many such examples of Sachin's book I mentioned to you earlier, how cricket fans get a book on Sachin's last book was gifted to those customers, and similarly novels of various kinds, movie tickets. And like I said, all is possible only when you engage our retail store staff. 3,000 of them in each city, each store of 137 stores, and ensure that we collect the data, engage with the customer to know him better. Thereby, we can give that personalized service, personalized understanding the consumer's needs and wants, and thereby make the engagement that much more personal as a generic mail being sent by the company to all the customers. So we incentivize our store staff. Like I said, we also have engaged them to go beyond the call of duty. So we have this wow factor, which I mentioned to you, which is the Creating Fans program. Some examples I'm just sharing with you, and which is customer order coffee with the vending machine ordered. The customer, our store took him to a coffee cafe day to get him a coffee. There's a customer who had a breakdown of a vehicle, we changed his tire. There are cases where customers have delivered products early in the morning for the wedding function. So those kind of personal decisions are allowed to be taken by our store staff. That's how we go the extra mile, and that's what we call the Creating Fan programs. And most importantly, this book we have put together, 100 retail customer delight stories is what we have published for our store staff. There are 100 such stories where customers have gone beyond the call of duty to engage with customers, to make sure, and this is out of selflessness. There's no interest for business. But it's way of life, and we believe every RSO in the system, and not only the RSOs, these doormen to the pantry boy, they all are allowed to take such decisions, and that's how we build this connect with the consumers. And I guess sharing with you, we are all into business. There are end results which are required to be shown, and some of the campaigns results are here. The specific campaign gave 60 crores sales with 19% growth, average purchase value of 1.14 lakhs, just by one of the initiatives they've done with the customers. Overall business impact, repeat customers gone up by 19%. Dormancy, which is a typical retail problem, is dropped by 10%. Multiplier effect across 137 stores. Now people are using data to get that one customer at a time engagement program so that we get more and more personal information of consumers. And we have a tracking of customer satisfaction. We have an overall experience score of 8.8, which is improved from 8.6, and a wow score. We have a wow score which says how impressed with the customer of Tanishq, and a score is gone to 64% of consumers believe we give wow experience in our stores. And we get 70% of emails are typically on thanking us for what we have done for those customers. Like I said, these 4,000 ROs have been awarded creating fan certificates. We have a monthly program where such stories are encouraged to share with the company, and we award them every month the best stories, the best initiatives the staff have taken. And obviously, the data drive to ensure high quality information is an ongoing program. We make sure that they get as much information of the person as possible, so that, like I said, we get that much closer to the consumer and give them that experience. That's it about it in terms of a very short time. We thought we should spend more time on discussing and engaging with each other about what we do. But this is just what Tanish has been doing for the customers. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm with Nokia for the last 18 months, and prior to that, spent close to 14 years with Adidas in India and Singapore and Thailand. So I'll share a bit of experience across and not necessarily talk about only my experience at Nokia, but also share some experience of a couple of my colleagues to talk about how we can go to, and then of course the challenge really is how do you execute it on the ground in this thing. I think to win consumers, you really have to let consumers win. And I think quite often a lot of organizations are very, very internally focused in this, and really the successful examples of organizations which have done well on consumer service or customer service are the ones who who have a culture of consumer service in this thing. It's about everything that they do. The first question is, how does it help the consumer? And I think if you're able to start from there, most often I think your questions are answered much better. Unfortunately, I think it's not necessarily true with most organizations. You tend to start with, okay, what's good for the organization? And then somewhere along the way, the execution does suffer, or even with the best intent, the actual execution on the ground does suffer. So I have a couple of charts. I talk about the shopper or the consumer centricity. It's amazing how sometimes, you want to go into this wows and the excitements and the delights and stuff like that. And quite often, I'm sure a lot of you as consumers have gone into stores and you've not even been greeted by the store staff. It's amazing how many stores I walked into, and you're browsing around the store, you're showing interest in various things, you even pick up stuff, and yet the store staff are either avoiding you, trying to adjust something here or there, and virtually make you feel like you don't exist out there. You're not going to get much out of that store in terms of, you definitely don't want to part with your money in that this thing. So, I'd like to really emphasize in the starting point, I think it's also a little cultural in the Indian context not to, some of the store staff genuinely think that they're probably intruding into the consumer, but I don't think I know of any consumer who's felt bad if he or she was greeted, and I think that's where it really starts. And clearly, I think consumers, you've got to manage expectations, but you do want to surprise them once in a while. What we really try to do in retail, in Nokia Retail especially, we are a full-line player. We have products from 1,000 rupees to 35,000 rupees, and we love the consumers who come to our stores and shop every 3 months, but unfortunately not all consumers can get to or afford to do that. So we're trying to constantly get consumers into the store more frequently, which means how can you be really a one-stop shop, providing multiple things that go with the ecosystem. So if you're selling a device, how do you sell some accessories like covers or headsets, or how do you sell some operator data plans, and how do you sell some of the vouchers so that the consumer can really get more out of the product, and that gives us a chance to build that relationship. And I think, this is something that's probably a little controversial, and I don't think most senior executives like this, but sometimes the best outcome from a consumer standpoint is actually you let them walk out of the store without concluding a sale. I think this is something that I found a very, very useful insight, and I think I've personally encouraged my team and the store staff to actually let the consumer go if the best outcome in the consumer's mind is actually to not close the sale. And this is one area I want to lead up to. If you mess up, you really make up, and you actually more than make up. And I have a personal example of where we had this thing. This is an example from my Adidas Singapore days. And there was this consumer who came into the store and said, I bought this pair of shoes, and there was something that was wrong with it, and it didn't. And the first response from the store staff was that, no, but I haven't heard about this. This has not happened to anybody else. And luckily, I was there in the store. I spent almost an hour each day for about 5 years continuously just to see what's happening on the ground. And then I stepped in and I said, look, I'm really sorry that this has happened to you. Because and yes, it's not happened to us, but if it's happened to you, I'm sorry about it. And what can we do about it? And it's amazing when the consumer has had a bad experience. I'm a kind of a consumer. If I had a bad experience, normally I don't go back to the store and tell them what's wrong. And I try to take my own decisions and probably move on. So for me, I think a consumer who comes back to complain or give you feedback about something that went wrong, I think you should virtually, fall down at their feet and thank them for that, because they've really taken that extra effort and they deserve something more. And we were able to recover that consumer. And lo and behold, this consumer kept coming back to the store every new launch. He was there at the store, and it was amazing, to the extent that we know some of those personal consumers like that. And from having a bad experience, he went on to become a fan and continue to buy more and more. And really, I think we're all looking at that lifetime value of a consumer. We all know that getting new consumers is a lot more expensive. You must have, of course, a few new consumers at any point in time, but retaining your consumers is great common sense. Clearly, all this, we can sit here and make presentations about how well we do things, what our strategy is, but at the end of the day, for a lot of consumers, the only point of contact between the brand and the consumer is at the store. So quite often, and especially in economies like ours, where retailing is a very, very nascent stage, I would still consider that we are at a very nascent stage. And when you have franchisees and you have employees working for franchisees and you have the high turnaround in retail, and it's hard work. It's hard work at retail. I think we all have much pleasure jobs sitting in offices, even if you do longer hours. At retail, it's much longer hours, and you have to put up with all kinds of consumers with all kinds of moods. And I think it's really important that you value that store staff at the point of retail who's managing and who's really representing your brand. And this is where I believe, apart from whatever education and stuff like that, there are some store staff who have consumer service in their blood. And I think if you are able to get them to come and work for you, you're at a starting point. Everything else can be learned. I think the innate consumer service is something that you do, and we've had some successes in Nokia, in my previous job in Adidas. And what we are, of course, at this point in time is to try and look at each and every consumer as an individual consumer and have those conversations. As I said, we have some consumers who are probably much more knowledgeable and much more techie than some of our store staff. And how do you have that conversation? So it's a tough job. It's not easy. But we are looking at finding those store staff who have that ability to go better. And clearly, consumers who have that, the store staff who have that attitude of consumer service, I think there are a few of them. I think if you manage to get them, hold on to them to dear life. And here I want to close my part with an example of some outstanding service. I wish it was an example from my company, but a colleague of mine checked into a hotel on a Thursday night, and he had a presentation on Saturday morning, and suddenly he realizes that one of his buttons is missing from his jacket, and as he was checking in, he told this guy at the check-in counter in the hotel, look, I have a problem here. I only have 3 buttons. The 4th one, I don't know where it's gone. And this guy said, okay, don't bother, just leave the jacket with me. And Friday evening, he of course gets his jacket back with all the buttons intact. What had happened behind the scenes is that they figured out what the brand was. My colleague was checking into the hotel in Chennai. This brand didn't have a store in Chennai. Actually, they called up the store in Delhi, and they found a button. They used their contacts, flew the button from Delhi to Chennai, stitched out the buttons, and actually not just stitched that one button, they stitched all the buttons so that it doesn't happen again. I mean, that's outstanding service. I don't want to name my colleague. I definitely want to name this person. His name was Gurpreet, and Gurpreet is like a bit of a legend within the team. That's the kind of examples that I want, and I really wish he was working for us, and I think it'd be great to have store staff like that. And I think those are the ones that create these wow experiences for consumers, and that's what we're striving to do. With that, I'll close. Thanks.
So what I'm going to talk about is Pizza Hut today. I do look after the three brands as a marketing officer, but I'm going to focus today on Pizza Hut. IRF, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and letting me speak here. I love coming back. This is my 4th time back here. Always come back, pick up some nuggets, speak a little bit, but more importantly, gain a lot when I go back. So thank you, organizers, for the opportunity. Why am I going to speak about Pizza Hut more than the others? Is because of this. Pizza Hut is, for the 7th year running, voted as the most trusted food service brand in the brand equity research, which happens every year. Yeah, this is an award which is actually, since it started in 2005, pretty much been owned by Pizza Hut. And we believe what brings this, makes this happen is, yes, of course, our great food. We do believe we make the best pizzas in the country, but also the fact that we bring to the consumers a service which allows us to be trustworthy for them. And that's where really I want to talk about. The belief comes from that customers actually always have an experience whenever they deal with your firm, whether we want them to or not. Instead of letting this experience be a random experience with them, getting some bits and pieces from each of your touch points, it's important that we actually actively manage it. And if we can systematically craft and then deliver a great experience to our consumers, we differentiate our brand, and sometimes differentiate in such a way with the service that even if the product itself might be not differentiated with other customers, the service takes you forward. And I believe this actually happens in 3 parts. To provide them experience which are distinctive and memorable, therefore which allow them to come back again and again, we must think of this in 3 stages. I borrow from Lou Carbon. If anybody has read his book, he's a real specialist in experience management of customers. And this is his model, which is perception. Consumers perceive, they interact, and they recollect. If you can manage actually each part of the 3 stages, then you're in real business, and you drive what we call the comebackability of your restaurant. Allows you to come back to the store. So how do we do this? We bring it down to what is our mantra, which is customer mania, and we measure this under these 6 heads. We believe all 6 of these actually go into making it a full experience. So it is not just food, it is a lot about cleanliness, the first cues which you pick up. It's about hospitality, of course. It is about accuracy. When I order something, when I'm looking for something, do I get exactly that? It's about maintenance and what am I really doing for the stores over time. It's, of course, as I said, product. And then in a restaurant business, about speed of service. How quickly am I able to get the food to you as you need? So that's really the champs check for us, something which we really, really pride ourselves on. There will be all the things that other speakers have also mentioned. There will be mystery shoppers for this. There will be checks for this. We do that on a very consistent basis across each one of our almost 200 restaurants in the country. So how do we really do this? We do this in 2 parts. The first part is bringing the casual dining piece alive. We believe Pizza Hut's a casual diner where you come in to have a full service experience and you start with the basics. So of course we must do. There must be a hostess. We must be there to take an order quickly. What we call staging, food must come in the right stage. You must get your beverages straight off, followed by your main course, followed by desserts and coffee, etc. You must be very well groomed. So very basics must be in place, which become part of Jamz. But then if you want to really, really drive comebackability is when we need to go to the next level. And what we have referred to as the consumer wow. And I'll just touch on a few things that we do, we believe, well in Pizza Hut. So then, what we call the branded service. When we go back to consumers, for example, and ask them what they remember about Pizza Hut, a large number of them will talk about our pizzas and how they are really mouth-watering and how they'll come back for the pizzas. But a large number of them will also talk about the bell. I don't know how many of you have been to a Pizza Hut and walked out without ringing the bell, or at least hearing the bell being run on the way out. It's a big part of our experience, almost. It's as much as eating the food there is. How do we actually make that impact everybody? The birthday wrap or the dancing waiters, yeah? How do people come together and experience and make the whole dining out experience to a next level? A third one, for us, a personalized note from the server who's been serving you. And of course, finally, for the younger audience, the balloon art for them. So in net, what we're saying is, need to do the basics and then create the wow, which can then add on and what we call in a branded service manner. At the end of it, remember that we need to manage each touch point of the consumer so that we can drive it back.
I thought I'll go without the help of a presentation. Having been a consultant, I've used that crutch often enough. So please do bear with me. I will want to cover 3 different parts of our presentation or my conversation today. One is about service and why it matters for retail. Secondly, what are the elements of service which are critical and how you can think about putting it together. And third is how it all comes together. How do you actually create a culture of service in the organization? But before we start, one of the things we do as a part of every morning in our salons, or what we do as part of any important meetings, we talk about customer service stories. So let me start with sharing a couple of customer service stories which were shared with us. We have a salon in Punjabi Bagh in Delhi, and there was a customer who likes a particular kind of coffee which is not available in our salon because we have a premix machine. And since we have an appointment-based system, we knew the client was coming. One of the operators ran out, got the coffee before the client walked in. That obviously made the client feel very happy about it. We had another, we do a lot of bridal makeups, get brides ready for the wedding. Last year we prepared about 25,000 brides for the wedding day. In one such occasion in Chennai, the bride realized that her shoes don't go with her lehenga. And that can be quite traumatic. Anyway, brides can be very emotional. And so one of the operators, or one of the makeup artists who lived close by, she said, I have a pair of gold chappals which may fit you, ran home, got them, and she actually wore those for the wedding. I'll also share a third experience. Typically, we don't do services at home, but I got a call from one of our stores in Delhi and said, we have a client. She's come to us only a couple of times before, but she's been very happy with our service. She's currently in hospital, and she wanted us to come there to do the service. Can we go? Experience what the store looks like, feels like. However, that's not too difficult to copy. Your latest store may be very snazzy and use all the latest materials and technology, but your competitor's latest store will match that, and your oldest store will never be able to keep up. The second one is range, the product range that you keep. Obviously, it's a big benefit for big box retailers. For small box like us, range is, again, while we can offer the widest range of services, it is easy to duplicate. Third thing you can be famous for is convenience. So you can be close to where the customer is. You can be in the malls that the customer goes to. You could be providing home delivery and all kinds of other convenient offers. Again, not too difficult to replicate. And lastly, price, which is not easy to, again, have a price advantage of, and it has a hit on your margin. The fifth element, which is probably, and for us, definitely the most important element, is service. Service differentiates us. Service is something that comes deep from culture. It is not easy to copy. It is not easy for anybody to replicate. And therefore, for us, service is very, very important. Service we cut up into, and you can cut in many different ways. We cut into 5 moments of truth. The first moment of truth is when the customer hears and considers coming to a Lakme salon. Now, there's enough marketing expertise in this room and enough work has happened on that subject. So I won't delve into that deeper. However, that is changing. That is changing with the advent of digital. And your digital, your website, your Facebook page, if you're B2B, your LinkedIn page, these are as much expressions of your retail experience as anything else. So the first one is when you hear about the store and you want to come in. The second one is when you enter. It could be the experience, it could be the smell. Very often it's a smell. It could be the greeting, and that's much more relevant in a small box retail as well. And the first contact with an individual and the first look when you enter the store or you first hit on the senses, that's a moment of truth. The third is the service delivery itself, and I'll come to that in a second. And the last two, one is the time of exit. There is something, every customer when they're exiting has a thought in their minds. And that thought could be, oh, I have to come back here. The thought could be, I have to tell my friends about it. The thought could be, fine, it was okay, nothing great. Or it could be, what a horrific experience, I must never come back. And that last thought very often can undo. It could be a poor billing experience. It could be a poor security experience, but can ruin a 1 hour, 2 hour pleasant experience. And therefore, that's another moment of truth. And the last moment of truth is when they meet their friends. The first friend, the first family member they meet, was the experience good enough for them to talk about? Was it bad enough for them to talk about? Or was it neutral enough for them to not mention it? So these are the 5 moments of truth which really matter. And the third one I'll focus on because the first 2 and the last 2 are common to any retailer. But the third one is different for every retailer. The third one depends on what your service delivery is going to be. You know, all of us want to do everything for every customer and provide a wow experience. It's not possible. It's important to pick the things that you want to do. In our kind of a business, it could be the people that we have. It could be the coolest stylists. It could be the quality of the products you use. It could be the availability. It could be the range in terms of the amount of customization you do for a client. It could be a variety of different things. I think increasingly, responsibility in terms of environment and community are also becoming planks for what you stand for. And that is tailored differently for different retailers. But I think it's very, very important to be clear as to what you want to be, and even more important as to what you not want to be. But one of the experiences that I think is currently the darling of the airline industry is Indigo. They're very clear what they want to be. They don't want to provide the hottest of food or have the shortest of skirts, but they do definitely want to be on time. And I don't think anybody has anybody's confused about what they are trying to do. I think that is very, very important, to be sure about what you're trying to do and make sure a customer knows that. So how you do it has 3 elements in my mind. One is what I just mentioned, which is communication. How do you communicate to your customer what your service proposition is? It could be as simple as having a board in the store. It could be a guarantee. If it doesn't work, I will pay you back. We will redo the service until you're satisfied. It could be a variety of those things. My favorite is an international example, a retailer called Tansus in Turkey, which has 8 guarantees in order to promise their customers that they are keen about service. If they do not give checkout in 3 minutes, they pay you. If you find a product which is past expiry, they pay you. They pay you cash. So they're willing to put their money where their mouth is and they communicate it to customers. So communication is incredibly important. Second is exhibition. What do your employees, what does the frontline feel when they're talking to customers? One of the reasons why, sometimes a store employee does not greet a customer, does not approach a customer, is because they may lack the confidence. And again, here my favorite example is Ritz-Carlton. Ritz-Carlton has an expression for its employees, not for the customer, that says, we are ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. So their entire proposition is oriented towards, we are ladies and gentlemen. So that's how the employees carry themselves, that's how they exhibit expertise and knowledge, and that's how customers perceive them. So that's another critical element of actual exhibition, which I call exhibition. The third one is feedback. Things are never perfect. There will be the odd customer, hopefully a small percentage of customers, who will be unhappy with your service. How easy is it for them to connect with you? Is it very difficult for them to find your website, your phone number, or is it so easy? It's on the bill, it's on your website, it's the first thing that comes up in Google, it's in the storefront. Simply call if you have any feedback. So to capture as much feedback as possible and make sure that you have an opportunity to give a second, and you get a second chance from that customer. So collecting that feedback is very important. And secondly, even if you don't collect the feedback, very often the customers had a good experience, but nothing spectacular that they will come back. And those are the customers you have to give a reason for them to come back. And that could be an event. For us, we do a lot of events to bring our existing customers back into stores. It could be a callback. We missed you. For some of the larger retailers, it could be a promotion, it could be a campaign. But you must give your existing customers a reason to come back. Because sometimes they may not have walked away with a wow experience, they may walked away with an okay experience. Because we'd love to give wow to everybody, but it may not always be possible. And lastly, I would say that while you do all of this, very often the front line is a little hamstrung in terms of what they are able to do. They need to be empowered. The rest of the organization needs to be oriented towards the front line. And to see the front line as a customer and for the front line to see the eventual customer enables them to deliver better service to the last customer. So that's all I wanted to talk a little. We'll hopefully discuss a little bit more about this. For us in the service business, it is not just a differentiator. It is the reason why people come into our salons, our stores. It is the reason, expertise is the reason why they come to us. Service is the reason they keep coming back to us. For us, retention is the most important driver of business, and therefore we cannot stress enough about delivering this right kind of experience.
I'm going to take a slightly different approach to the rest of the panel to this. As I read the question and the challenge to this session, it is not just what is customer service, but the question that they've asked is, what is the extent of customer service provision that you should be looking at? Basically, how much customer service should you be giving? And the answer is very simple, it's lots. We all know that. It's easy to give more and more and more. But the reality to business is quite clearly that it must be a cost-benefit analysis. When we talk about customer service and my world, and I'm not a retailer, I'm a service provider, my world is loyalty, and clearly managing that relationship with that customer is the world that I live in. So rather than try and give you all of the answers, I just want to run through 6 very simple questions that perhaps if you're thinking of running a loyalty program or you are already running a loyalty program that you think should be being run better, you should be asking yourself perhaps these 6 questions to see whether you're actually going to get the benefit that your cost is incurring, or the cost you're incurring. First question, very simple. Is your objective clear? Do you know why you're doing loyalty? I've been coming to India for a best part of 4 years and talking to an awful lot of retailers, and an awful lot say, yes, I'm desperate to have a loyalty program. And there are some, and there's a fabulous example earlier from Sandeep, some here that are being run exceptionally well and exceptionally efficiently. But there are many that don't work so well. If you are not clear of why you are doing loyalty, I can almost guarantee it'll fail. And loyalty is about revenue, and it is about incremental revenue. And it is all of the drivers that you live and breathe as retailers. Increased frequency, ABV, and acquiring new customers. If your loyalty program isn't delivering any of that, your objective isn't clear, and chances are you'll fail, you'll incur cost, and pretty little benefit. Do you have a strategic commitment to loyalty? This is a little harder. What do you mean by strategic commitment? The first one is meaningless. Everybody says it, but do you really mean it, and can you really deliver it? Is your relationship with your customer the #1 priority in your business? Boy, that sounds nice. We all agree that we're going to do that, but the reality is are you actually delivering it? And does your entire organization understand it? We've run loyalty programs here and elsewhere where, for example, we create 4 simple scripts that the staff are encouraged to give to the consumer as they enter into that retailer's outlet. It doesn't matter what you do in the boardroom, if the staff aren't bought in to delivering that message, your program will fail. The entire organization has to get behind it, which means that the guy at the top is dictating that this is my number one priority. The difficulty in loyalty, again, is the long-term process. It's not a quick fix. You cannot start to increase that revenue and hit your objectives until you've got data. It's a simple world. Are you delivering a customer experience with your loyalty program that is creating value, and is the consumer seeing that value in that loyalty program? And this is all about that staff education and consumer education and customer education. Again, it's simple. I'm not trying to teach you rocket science here, but it's amazing how over these first 3 questions, if you are not committed to the answers and crystal clear on the answers, your costs will go up and your benefit in a loyalty program will be non-existent. Data collection. Are you getting enough? Are you getting too much? Where are you going with it? There's a lot of data to collect. And everybody that wants to run a loyalty program, it's a little bit buying an old video, like buying an old video recorder in the old days. You want all the bells and whistles and you've got to have absolutely everything on it. That has a cost to it. If you're starting to capture attitudinal data, you are starting to intrude on your consumer. You're asking him more and more and more questions about what he is, what he's doing, what he's interested in, everything else. It starts to get a little bit harder and harder. So are you getting your data collection right, and how much? And the best example of this is one of the most effective programs in the States, which is the Subway loyalty program. For the first 5 years, they didn't collect any product data at all. Everybody I've ever spoken to in loyalty says, I must collect product data, I must know A versus B. In many retail categories, of course, that's the case, and if your objective is the average bill value, then you've got to know what products. It's the classic shopper's stop example of this guy's buying trousers and I want to start selling him shirts as well. But in other retail categories, if you're just looking at frequency, you can run a very effective and economically efficient loyalty program just by looking at transaction values. But most important with data collection, can you use it? And that's what we call influence in the loyalty world. As we look at influence, how sophisticated is it? And is it delivering the objective? And are you really doing it efficiently? And most important of all, and it's one of the comments that's come up so far, can you communicate it? Can you create that communication habit where people pay attention to you? There is no point giving me a big prize if I never pay attention to the communication about that you're telling me I've won it. We all know the example of communication, I think, in the last week or so, and I shouldn't be rude about the organisers have been so kind to invite me here, but we all have an example of over-communication in the last week or so, and you stop paying attention. You just delete those emails, and yet some of them have got things that are of great interest to you potentially. But you've broken the habit. One simple tip: don't communicate unless you're communicating value. And as we've all experienced this last week, less is more. Very simple, very quick presentation. All I wanted to do is just challenge a little bit. Customer service, it's easy to stand here and say, do more, do more, do more. And it's relatively comfortable to have fabulous, unique examples where people have done something quite staggering. But just don't forget, at the end of the day, what can you afford? Don't go too far if you can't afford it. That's what we're all in business for, clearly.
Since we have only 10, 12 more minutes to go, and we have 2 things. One is the discussion, and secondly, we have to take a few questions from the audience as well. So I had 4 or 5 points on which I wanted to have discussion, and given the paucity of time, I'll just restrict it to 2 and just rotate it around amongst the panelists and try to loop you guys also into that. Sandeep, I had, in terms of your depth of customer loyalty program, that's what I found very intriguing, that how you are taking it from one level where people generally are trying to capture what the customer is doing in the store, how frequently they are coming, what they are purchasing, and how much you can influence. But you've gone beyond building this relationship. But all this, definitely, there is a cost to it. That how do you go about doing? How do you look at it? Because in the organized retail area, definitely that's a big challenge, that nobody seems to be making money, and you seem to be spending money on, just because you sell gold doesn't mean that you have too much money, or what else?
No, it's, like I said, it's all about the investment in consumers. See, there is, like I mentioned the last slide, I mentioned the returns in terms of each of the initiatives. But like I said, that factory visit, for example, now there is no intent to sell to those consumers who come to the factory. But we know that they go back and they buy. And there are data to establish that the people who have come back from their factory visit, or we have done events for those consumers, they've come and bought back. And we have a very evolved information system. So we have a Anuttara membership card. I can track the customer's transactions over a period of like 5 years, 8 years. Therefore, those information clearly drives us to believe that the spend that we are doing clearly justifies more than the kind of investment we have made. And it's not the point that we make more money. Jewelry is a very low margin business. Our turnovers are very large, but we don't make too much of money in that business. But I'm saying investing in, and it's part of the marketing spends. So if you look at the top line marketing versus this marketing, we have probably a 40-60 ratio on top line and ATL and BTL. That 40% BTL is part of this program. So therefore, we clearly see a benefit. We have never seen any program. Like I said again and again, it is not intent. We measure the performances, surely. But the intent, the staff does not know that, I'm doing this, that guy will buy more from me. That's not the intent when I do the program. The initiative that I shared with all of you is not that I will do that initiative, I will get this return. It is we will do it and we are sure for a fact in this category that retention values are high and they will come back and buy from you. And I can track that. And we have tracking. We have tracking of all those engagement celebration done in the store, what has been the buyback. We have percentage of customers who celebrate birthdays, how many of them bought more than they normally buy. The frequency purchase, average bill value, Alistair mentioned. We track average bill value. I share the number with you, 1.14 lakhs, which is higher than the typical average bill value of a brand. So there are enough measures and factors to establish metrics to prove that these marketing investments are profitable. And like he mentioned, Alistair mentioned, that we are a long-term game. Right from primary onwards, we believe that you invest in customer, they'll pay you back. And like all our businesses, like watches or jewelry, we have never invested in the middleman. Our retailers are not our consumers. Our consumers are actual consumers in the market who pay money for the brand. And we invest in that, we get the returns automatically. So we be clear about it. The numbers clearly add up towards in favor of investing in consumers over a long period of time.
Oh, excellent. So great emotional connect, but based on very strong commercial, financial foundation. And I think that's how the return on investment, you are able to measure that. Jeweler complaining low margin, and we all are suspecting that he doesn't want us to get into jewelry business, but you sell food, which all of us know is a very, very low margin business, and you are here offering free service, putting money into technology like grinding masalas for them and chakkis for atta. How, and everybody is worried about the few square footage extra space being given here and there, and you're putting all these machines out there and doing things for people, free chapatis. Does it really pay back?
Absolutely. And we don't see it as a cost in the sense you do have around 200 people in a store. And if you dedicate smartly a couple of people to do the seva bhav, which I mentioned about grinding the wheat or chopping of vegetables, the fact is consumers who are short on time or who look for convenience, they will definitely come back 100% in this paybacks. And again, we haven't done an ROI or any maths on it on how much is the return, because the whole feeling is the whole attitude of the organization to do this service for the customer.
I think the lifetime value most definitely, I would suspect, is in case of jewelry, while it may on few transactions and frequency would be over a few years, but the lifetime value of your consumer is far more higher if we have to put those numbers together. Even I haven't done that, but I'm sure we certainly spend more on food than on jewelry in our lifetime.
See, I'll also add, Harmat, there. See, we're going through a big transition in the country from buying from a very small store, you're coming into a very large store. You end up spending a lot of more time. More and more women are working. They do need these services. For us, services, one can say the retailer services, as I mentioned, is if your air condition has gone bad, how much time does it take? How much is the billing efficiency or time? All that are standards, and not that they're not important. But I think this is really something which you do from inside the organization, I mean, as an attitude to the customer.
So Karthik, if I could bring you into discussion, very simple point on that. Like I said, it's about delighting that woman, which most of us know, I'm sure, not most, all of us know that how difficult that is. But correlating with another point, wherever there's a good example given that how a company or a particular store or a brand was able to delight the consumer, it's always in the background there is a disaster. This is the bad situation which we happened. Consumer was so pissed off, and then we did something spectacular and it turned out to be a great experience. Right, in case of most of the other cases, I can see that those things happening. And in your case, if something goes wrong, I think chances of recovering from there will be far more difficult than it's wrong billing or packaging something which was not intended in some other cases.
Absolutely. I think women come into our salons to look good and feel great. And if something does go wrong, and thankfully it doesn't go wrong very often, we do get very few. I mean, it is difficult for us to get a second chance. But the answer is exactly what you said. The first one is to make sure that that doesn't happen. And whether it's investments in training, whether it's making sure that we have enough of a, I would say, fail-safe system to make sure those kind of errors don't happen. And secondly, when they do happen to go out of our way, and we have gone out of our way and spent at least, and we try not to do refunds, but it's not about the money. The idea is not to give back that money, which is not an issue. But its idea is that if something has gone wrong, we go out of our way and make sure we do whatever it takes. We have flown trainers down, specialists down to meet a client to make sure that if something has gone wrong with the service, that we can fix it. Because there are a lot of experts within the organization, may or may not be in that city. We will fly them down. We make sure that that customer leaves happy. So the answer is to try and make sure those percentage of that is very, very small. And when it does happen, we go out of our way, don't look at cost, just go and fix it.
Karan, your point, which I really liked, was not necessarily a Nokia example, but what you said that the best scenario could be letting the customer go and no sale closed on that particular visit. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that, because there was not much time during your presentation? Because most of the time it is about, let's close the sale, let's make a sale, and we are incentivizing people, we have trained people on that. We call them customer associates or whatever we call them, but at the end of it, they are all salespeople. And we are saying, don't worry about making a sale here.
I mean, a short-term way of looking at sales would be to close that sale. And we talk about that relationship. And the best way to keep the relationship going is when you're not trying to break that relationship, but you're investing in keeping that relationship going. Quite often, I don't know of any brand or any business which has the entire repertoire of whatever the various consumers need. And I think we all know that we have segmented our business, or we have a certain area of competence where we are very good at, which obviously means that there are some consumers who we will not be able to cater to well enough. And I think we need to recognize that. Yes, it's very difficult on the ground to let that consumer go, but I think once you give that confidence to the team, and they actually realize that it can work. But I would say it's work in progress. It's not an easy one.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the point I was trying to get into, that while intent at the strategic level, at the core group level or the senior management level is very, very clear, this is what you want to do. But when it comes to the ground reality at the store level, and that I think discussion can take all 1.5 hours if one has to talk about the people's role in this. What do they do? And but still, if I have to give my 2 bits on this, I think on the customer service level, when you look around the world, I think in India still we get very, very good service. And now I know, sitting and sharing panel with some of you here, that how you people do so many things. Many of these things, the way in which you are doing in your store, because I am not a customer, I don't go to Food Bazaar often, there are not many in my place where I live. I didn't even know about. And so many things which Tanishq is doing. And even though I am a customer, I have been there, but not maybe in that super loyal customer league. So I didn't know so many things are being done. And Pizza Hut, Sandeep had to leave for some urgent call, so he's not here. But Pizza Hut is something which we all experience, but now it seems comprehensively people are. When I started thinking about this panel discussion, even I was not very aware of all what is being done. So from that point of view, it's been very, very insightful and very, very gainful session for me personally. And I hope you as audience also have enjoyed the discussion. And if there are any questions, we can take maybe 3 questions in the last few minutes which are left now.
My question to all is, the kind of loyalty program that we see in India, they are more, this is my personal opinion, they are more of, entrapping the customers and not letting them derive the real value out of it. So my question is, if we really want to bring back the customers in, what real value are the Indian retailers giving to the consumers in terms of bringing them back to their store?
The consumers, see, there's one, the value is not price. Okay, first of all, if many people think that, I get a better, get some rupees paisa from that transaction is what will buy the customer back, unfortunately not the case. If you see in the current environment where you have 70% off, 60% off, and many colleagues of ours would accept the fact that customers are not going to buy into prices anymore. There's something beyond price that customers are willing to look at. And that's one example that I can share with our personal effort, is that there are certain things which are beyond price alone. The whole acknowledgement bit, the value that he gets, the personalized effort, that's how the brands are created. Typically, if you look at the brand market, shirts or mobile phones, cost price is nothing. There's no cost. The costs are very low. The value addition, which is the brand value addition, in some cases only the brand premium. But on a product level, they're not differentiated too much, except technology products. So why does some people buy A brand more than the other brand? It's more expensive. There obviously are some matters consumers like or appreciate about the brand with which they want to pay that extra money. And that is what the value creation is process about. Like I mentioned to you, in our effort of engaging the customer on a personal level, if I am buying from a brand and if I get a personal relationship, a personal input from the brand, which is like on my anniversary, on my birthday or something, I get something which is personal to me, that is invaluable. He is not to put any value to that. You can't put any price to that. So these are reasons why consumers also buy. You all of us consumers, you've seen many times you buy into a brand, into a retail store, not purely on the merchandise. Merchandise available everywhere else. Not differentiated at all. But something that the brand does, the store does, that makes you pull back into the brand. And those value additions are what we shared with our examples of. Those are important aspects consumers like to relate to the brand. And that's why they pay the premium. By that logic, you shouldn't be selling any premium brand in the country today. But even Indian consumers believe that the relationship, those value additions in terms of that personalized effort is an important aspect which customers are willing to pay a price for. So I think it's a value, understand the consumer what is value for him, and delivering that value is equally important in retail environment. And that's my view.
Thank you.
So I'm Pramod here. Whenever we are giving a personalized service to the customer, the next time the customer will not treat it as a delighter. So the customer will treat it as something he's expecting that. And next time he will expect more than whatever he got last time. So how will you tackle this kind of difficult situations?
Who would you like this question to be answered?
Because everybody is.
I think you're right in the sense that the minute you start promising, if you say I'll give you 10% discount, that 10% discount becomes a part and parcel of what the expectations is, and then you have to go and deliver over and above expectations. So the honest answer is that there is no end on this. As you do more, there will be more, the expectations will go up and you will have to deliver more. What you can do, what we try to do is to do different things each time. Because you may, what you do with each customer can be very different. A customer in our case, for example, some customers like a long, elaborate service, others are in a hurry to get out. So you can personalize what you do for each customer, and yes, next time that expectation may have changed, and then you'll have to do a little bit more. But I think what's important is not to build a lot of promises into the loyalty program so that you can give positive surprises.
I think that's very well. In fact, I'll refer to my discussion in one of the very first retail conferences we ever had. And my dear friend, late Raghu Pillai, he had this point which he made. I was very young to the industry at that point, or he was running retail business for a very long time even then. And that's what he said, that he has to be very careful about what all promises he makes to the consumer, but at the same time he's never holding back what he can deliver to the consumer. So the difference is between the promise and delivery, because if you have promised something and made a lot of noise about it, and then you still delivered it, you're absolutely right, next time they want more. But you promise very little, or you promise very specifically this is what we'll do, but you are ready to deliver far more than what it is due to them, legitimately, or what has been promised. I think that's the way to manage it, and it's always will be a very fine balance which one has to strike. But most of the presentation, the way it's being said, it's a matter of intent, it's the attitude of the people there, and it's at the senior management level, what is the DNA of the organization. And I think these challenges will continuously be there, but as long as intent is clear, I think things do play out.
General consumers are very reasonable. I think they have fairly sensible expectations, and I think the fact is that you delight them once in a while. I don't think they expect to be delighted every time. Yes, but if you're making a promise of delighting them each time and doing one up from the past, then. But I think most transactions are fairly, a managed expectation where your promise is pretty clear to the consumer, and the consumer just expects that.
I also think that actually the two questions are very similar, in so much as, yes, you are promising typically in a loyalty program financial rewards. One of the key expressions for us in loyalty is surprise and delight. And one of the emotions in loyalty is not just money, it's also about status. And you can achieve a status delight at much, much less cost than you can a 10% off, 15% off. A very quick example of a program that we run at home in Hong Kong, where you go to the coffee shop, you keep going to the coffee shop, you're just happily buying your coffee every morning, and unbeknownst to you in the background, there is a program running, and on the 10th time you come into that coffee shop, up on the point of sale screen, it just says to the staff, give Alistair a free piece of cake. And they immediately turn to you and say, Alistair, lovely to see you today, would you like a free piece of cake? Now, for us in Hong Kong, we're the most impatient people in the world, as you've probably guessed. You know, if you're paying $36 Hong Kong for a cup of coffee, you're not the cheapest guy in the world. That piece of cake probably isn't very expensive, but you tell everybody about how well you were treated by Pacific Coffee. Classic surprise and delight. It happens on the 20th and the 30th coffee as well. And you don't know, you're not counting. So surprise and delight is very, very important, and it's the same answer to the first question, emotion. You're really trying to play on emotions, and status is a huge one in Asia, as we know.
Hi, my name is Sachin. I'm representing EMEA. We are leaders in loyalty management services. My question is to Mr. Kannan. Unlike Tanishq or Pizza Hut or Lakme, the kind of product you deal with, the mobile handsets, knowing the fact specific to Indian market that the product is sold from unorganized sectors or the outlets where you or your brand is not representing directly with the customer. Here they have direct touch point, direct contact with the end consumer. In this case, how do you ensure that this brand service related commitment are delivered to the customer? I have been a Nokia consumer until now, until recently, and used high-end phones also, but I assume Nokia even doesn't know who am I. How does Nokia deliver the service level to me?
Yeah, I mean, Nokia has a very, very wide distribution. We service about 200,000 outlets. We sell millions of phones each month. So it's definitely, yes, a very challenging one. But at the same time, I think we have a lot of elements into this. So we have care in almost every place where we go in terms of when we have a problem. When it comes to, I think, loyalty, yeah, we don't necessarily go out of the way to have a loyalty program in the multi-brand stores, but most of our retailers have a way of connecting with most of their consumers. And this is true about even the multi-brand consumers. I'm not just talking about the 700 odd stores where we have the single brand exclusive Nokia stores, but I have some examples of some of our multi-brand partners who do a fantastic job of customer service with their consumers, and to the extent that even if the other store has a better range or willing to offer a better price, there are some consumers who go back to the same store. And so that's the way we do it. It's obviously a challenge to handle loyalty when you're selling millions of phones, but we do have a network of partners who are able to handle that. Does that answer your question, or were you looking for something else? Thanks.
So thank you very much. I can see that the next panel is already here, so won't take too much time. So thank you, my fellow panelists. Thanks for your time and sharing your insights here. Thanks to Images, and overall thanks to all the people here who attended the panel and shared their questions. And I hope it was worth your while. Thank you very much.